My own sister stood in front of 50 guests at our mother's funeral and told everyone I had abandoned the family business. She didn't mention that she'd forged my signature on a buyout agreement 6 months earlier. She didn't mention that she'd been planning this since before our mother got sick. What she didn't know was that I had already found the proof. And by the end of that week, she wouldn't just lose the business. She'd lose everything she built on top of my name. If you've ever had someone close to you smile to your face while stabbing you in the back, you need to hear this story. My name doesn't matter. What matters is what my sister did and what I did back. Growing up, it was always me and Renata. 2 years apart, inseparable. Our parents ran a small home goods store, the kind of place that smelled like cedar and lemon polish, where regular customers knew us by name. When Dad passed, Mom kept the store going, with both of us working there through high school, then college, then well into our 20s. I was the one who pushed us online. I built the website, set up the shipping system, negotiated with suppliers when Mom's health started slipping. Renata handled the floor, the customers, the day-to-day charm that made people come back. We complemented each other. At least that's what I believed. 3 years ago, Mom signed both our names onto the business as equal partners, 50-50, on paper and in writing. It felt like the natural next step. We'd grown up in that store. It belonged to both of us. Then Mom's health really started to decline. Cancer, slow, and cruel. I took on more of the financial side so Renata could spend time with Mom in her final months. I trusted her completely. I had no reason not to. We'd never had a real fight in 30 years. What I didn't know was that while I was buried in supplier contracts and inventory spreadsheets, Renata had quietly been meeting with a lawyer. Not our family lawyer. A new one. Someone she'd found on her own. Mom passed in early spring. The funeral was small, just family and the regulars from the store who'd become like extended relatives over the decades. I was still in shock, still moving through the motions of grief, when Renata pulled me aside 2 days later and asked me to sign some transition paperwork to formalize the store ownership now that Mom was gone. I trusted her. I signed without reading every line. I was burying our mother. I wasn't thinking about fine print. That paperwork wasn't a transition document. It was a buyout clause, backdated, that transferred my half of the business to her for a single dollar, citing a fabricated voluntary exit agreement. She claimed I'd verbally agreed to months earlier. She'd built an entire paper trail to support it. Emails I never sent, reconstructed from old message threads, a notarized statement from a notary who, it turned out later, was a friend of her new boyfriend. I found out 3 weeks later when I tried to log into the store's business banking portal and discovered my access had been revoked. When I called Renata, she didn't even deny it outright. She said, and I remember this word for word, "You were always going to leave eventually. I just made it official." She had already changed the locks. She'd already told our small circle of family friends that I'd checked out emotionally after Mom's death, and she was holding things together. People believed her. Why wouldn't they? She was the warm one. I was the spreadsheet person. That funeral speech wasn't an accident. It was the final brick in the wall she was building, so that when I eventually tried to fight back, I'd look like the bitter, absent sibling trying to take something from the grieving daughter who'd kept the family business alive. I didn't react right away. I didn't call a lawyer screaming. I didn't post anything online. I went quiet, and Renata mistook my silence for surrender. What I actually did was start documenting everything. I still had years of email backups from when I managed the supplier accounts. I had time-stamped invoices, contracts, and messages that proved I had been actively running financial operations for the business, right up until the week before Mom died, directly contradicting her claim that I had voluntarily exited months earlier. I reached out quietly to our actual family accountant, the one who'd done our taxes for over a decade, and asked her to pull every financial record tied to the business for the past 2 years. She didn't know anything was wrong. She just thought I needed it for estate purposes. That accountant's records showed deposits, signatures, and approvals from me, dated well after my supposed exit. Then I found the notary, A little digging showed his office address matched the same business complex as Renata's boyfriend's auto shop. One conversation, framed carefully as a routine verification call, was enough to learn he'd notarized documents without me present, which is, depending on the state, either a serious licensing violation or outright fraud. I had 3 things now. Proof I was working the business after my exit, proof the exit agreement was backdated, and proof the notarization was fraudulent. That's not a sibling disagreement anymore. That's a paper trail leading directly to a courtroom. I didn't confront Renata directly. I went to a lawyer, a real one, and laid out everything I had. He didn't even hesitate. He said this wasn't a family dispute anymore. It was fraud, forgery, and notary misconduct, and we had enough to pursue both a civil case to reclaim my ownership and a criminal complaint against the notary. We filed quietly, no warning. The first Renata heard of it was when she received an official notice that her buyout agreement was being challenged in court, backed by financial records, an accountant's sworn statement, and a notary fraud complaint already filed with the state licensing board. She called me 11 times in 2 days. I didn't answer once. When I finally responded, it was through my lawyer, in writing, stating that I would be willing to discuss a settlement if she returned my full 50% ownership, and issued a written retraction of the claims she made about me at Mom's funeral, copied to the same family friends she'd told. She fought it for about 3 weeks. Then the notary's licensing board opened a formal investigation, and suddenly her transition paperwork had a much bigger problem than just me. Her lawyer advised her to settle before the fraud complaint dragged the entire buyout into criminal territory. She signed the reversal agreement in a conference room, not a courtroom, which honestly disappointed me a little. I wanted her to feel the full weight of what she'd done somewhere more permanent than a private room with 2 attorneys. But I got what mattered: my ownership restored, on paper, beyond dispute, and a retraction, in writing, sent to every single person she'd told that story to at the funeral. We don't speak anymore. The store eventually sold, split the way it should have been from the start, 50-50, clean and final. Some of the old family friends reached out afterward, a little embarrassed they'd believed her so quickly. I didn't need their apology. I needed my name back, and I got it. People like Renata count on you being too grieving, too distracted, or too trusting to check the paperwork. They count on silence reading as weakness. It never is. Sometimes the most powerful response to betrayal isn't a scene. It's a folder of documents quietly assembled while everyone thinks you've already given up. If this story hit close to home, or if you've ever had someone close to you betray your trust like this, tell me about it in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you want more stories like this, make sure you're subscribed, because there's a new betrayal and a new revenge waiting for you every single week. I'll see you in the next one.